Hello, kids, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about books that I've read for the last 40 years. But today I have my special guest. He is a clinical psychologist and co-author of the upcoming book Reenactments, no other than Mr. Tony Iezzi. Welcome,
Well done.
welcome,
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Tony. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Uh, I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been working essentially in a general medical hospital for the last 35 years. And my job has been very focused on helping people deal with the consequences of their medical conditions.
Mr. Tony Iezzi, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. Let's talk about, well, your upcoming book. How do you define a reenactment in a psychological terms? And what is the primary, often unconscious drive that compels us to repeatedly play about painful patterns from our past?
Yeah, that's a good question. Reenactments are experiences that lead to a specific pattern of responding in terms of the brain, body, and mind. And the key thing is people think that the trigger is a specific event, but the truth is it's the themes in the events that affect people. People are not aware of the themes. They don't deal with the themes. They deal with the obvious, for example, the obvious injury in, in terms of where they hurt, and this is their focus when they need to pay attention to feeling dependent, losing control over themselves, losing control over their circumstances, losing their sense of identity. These are the things that really affect people. And if you can change how you react to these moments, then you will feel empowered and you will have a different response to these circumstances.
What happened in the
Oh,
brain?
excuse me, and this
Yes,
happens because it's old habits.
yes.
We These habits start very early and in childhood, and they happen in nice homes, they happen in challenging homes, but we're raised by parents, we're raised by people around us who instruct us on how to be good, how to be strong, how to not be lazy, how to be loved or not loved. So these are the things that shape people and defines them, and they become sensitive to these themes. And then when they become adults, they get triggered in all kinds of different situations, and not recognizing that it's the theme that links all the different situations.
What's happened in the brain, Mr. Stoney, specifically with the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex or cortex
Sure,
that
sure,
makes
sure.
reenactment feel so similar or familiar, even inevitable?
Yeah, these experiences happen every day, day after day, and all throughout the day. And these experiences sort of get etched in the brain, in certain parts of the brain. And so hippocampus is involved in, trying to remember events, and we store them. Sometimes we're not very accurate in storing the information, but that's what the hippocampus does. The prefrontal cortex is the area that sort of we look at situations, we make a read of a situation, and we react to that situation, and we try to make decisions. But often this happens so fast, and these old habits occur without us even being aware. So if you're going to change how you respond to these moments, if you're going to break reenactments, you have to start becoming more aware. You start to need to attend more to these circumstances and to think of different ways of behaving. You want to create new pathways in the brain. So we go from like an old brain, old pathways, to a new brain with new pathways, where we do the behavior that we want to do, the behavior that's good for us, as opposed to doing the usual bad behavior that we have learned over the course of time.
Mr. Tony, how are reenactments different from simply making the same mistake twice? What is the
Uh,
key element that transforms a bad habit into a traumatic reenactment?
if we made the same mistake twice, we would all be happy because that's not much. But in terms of how this goes for people, it happens over and over and over. So, for example, the reaction to maybe being talked down to is to go quiet and to stew. That started early and that occurred many times. It happens with friends, it happens with partners, it happens with employers. And so this pattern becomes ingrained. And once ingrained, the consequences, the outcome are always the same. So it's a bit like Einstein's, famous quote, if, if you do the same thing over and over again, why would you expect anything to be different? And so this is what we're trying to do is be aware of the past, the old habits, create new habits, and live a life that is more what you want. And in the trauma context, what makes trauma different from everyday experiences is you can have one event and that's etched in your brain and you'll be affected for the rest of your life. So there are moments in life, the death of someone, war experiences, physical assault. These things don't need to happen every day, just once, and you're marked. And essentially, the body is almost seared by this experience. And then it shapes how they respond to everything. So, for example, motor vehicle collision in November, a mom and a kid dies in the other car. That day it was snowing, that day it was dark. And so what happens anytime we can trigger the whole experience. So trauma is a bit different from everyday experiences in that it doesn't take many occurrences. And it also is the case that for them, even everyday experiences can light them up in a traumatic way if they have the same themes that they experienced in the traumatic moment.
Mr. Tony, you mentioned that reenactments are an attempt to master the original pain. How does replaying version of the trauma falsely promise resolution, and why does its strategy always fail?
Because it's the same outcome. If very often people respond to trauma by engaging in avoidance, they avoid all the things that remind them of the event. But the fact is, what you avoid today, you're going to have to face tomorrow. And it's only through approaching what we're scared of we have a chance to get over this. So it's important to be aware to face and to do something different. And if you do something different, you're going to feel different. And so a tagline in the book is do different, be different. It's not that you be different first and then you think you're going to do something different. The thought alone doesn't change. You have to engage in an action to change how you feel. So, for example, you can't think about being confident and then go do something. You have to go do something, and that leads to confidence. So, it's the action that breaks the cycle. And people, it's instinct. We, as a species, our tendency is to avoid. And whether we avoid or approach, it's all about survival. So the question is, how do you want to survive? Do you want to survive running the rest of your life? Or do you want to face life and have more of a life?
On recognition on the patterns, Mr. Tony, What are the most common emotional, physical, or relational red flags that suggest someone is caught in a reenactment cycle rather than just having a bad day or a difficult relationship?
Yeah, the the reaction is the same as it was previously. You can have any kind of reaction to things, but the very specific reaction that is associated with certain themes is going to go the same way. So, for example, if there's a history of going quiet when being mistreated, the specific reaction to that is going to be not say anything, feel bad, stew, have thoughts, have feelings, feel abandoned, feel lonely. And so it's this whole network that lights up in response to a reenactment. You can have difficult moments and you can have a reaction. The difference is with a reenactment, there's a whole experience that lingers. It doesn't last for just an hour. It'll last for the rest of the day, and sometimes it goes into the next day. So that makes it a reenactment. But if we have a difficult moment, we respond to that moment, and then an hour later or two has passed. So that's likely to just be more of a normal reaction to a circumstance, and it wouldn't be a reenactment.
Before the conscious mind realizes it, the body often knows it's
Yes.
entering a reenactment. What are the somatic cues, the gut clenches, and shallow breath that we can learn to heed as an early alarm system?
That's a good question. And the what's really hard for people to accept is that physiology rules. It rules. Physiology registers first. Brain and body knows before the conscious brain is aware. And so much of the work in trying to get better and deal with reenactments in a more effective way is to work on self awareness. And by being aware, you have a chance to change the circumstances. And so you start to track the symptoms in your body. What is your heart rate doing? You know, is your face red? Is are you sweating more? Are you tensing up? These are all it's not a one thing. It's a total body response, and it essentially means you're on alert. You're under threat, and that um, um, is difficult for people to accept, that actually they think that they make a decision and that controls the body. That's not really how it goes. It's really things are registered early on in the brain and body. So awareness is the key factor of the body, awareness of what's going on in the moment, and then that person has a chance to problem solve and get through this moment.
Awareness, indeed. And Mr. Tony, what is the first most critical step someone can take in the moment they recognize they are being triggered into reenactment? Is it
Yeah.
mental, physical, or emotional maneuver?
That's a good question. It's all of those. And so the task is, once you know you're in a situation, the first thing you have to do is regulate yourself, calm down. Do you step away? Do you go for a little walk and come back? Do you take some deep breaths? And while you're doing all of this, that you're thinking. If you don't regulate your physiology, your anxiety, your emotions are going to be way up here, and you won't be able to think. You won't be able to problem solve. We're back to the prefrontal cortex. You won't be able to figure out what you need to do. So it becomes very important to to be aware of what is going on, regulate yourself, ask yourself what is going on right now. What am I being triggered by? What's the theme? And when you know what's the theme, then the idea would be, what's the strategy to take care of it?
Interesting, Mr. Tony. Your book title promised to break the behavior patterns. What does the process of rewriting actually look like in practice? Is it cognitive exercise, an imaginative one, or behavioral rehearsal?
Yeah, very behavioral. And again, as I said earlier, the emphasis is on behavior because that leads to change in how you feel. If it's just straight cognitive, it doesn't guarantee that the behaviors will happen. So you can practice all you want somewhere. The test is when you're in the moment, and that's what decides whether you're going to be stronger or affected by the circumstances. So the idea is to, if you figure the theme, if the theme is, for example, feeling trapped, then the strategy to break feeling trapped is what can you do to get out of that trap? And so some people avoid, stay stuck, don't deal with it. One way to break this would be say something. I don't like the way this is making me feel. All right, this is making me feel cornered. I wish you would do this or you would say that. And so when you can identify the theme, you can identify a strategy, a behavioral strategy that helps to break the reenactment.
Mr. Tony, as a clinical psychologist, co-author of reenactments, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the last part.
What are your short-term and long-term goals, Mr. Tony?
Oh, in terms of for myself or
Yes, for
oh,
yourself
yeah,
as well
okay.
as your profession.
Yeah, well, this idea has been in my head for like 30 years. It has evolved. And so now I use this approach regularly in individual sessions and group contexts. Um, Patients asked me, they wanted a guidebook, they wanted something they could use, and so the short term, long term goals is to put this out, to help people, to help people think differently about this, and I know it works, because like I said, I use it all the time. And um, I think if I could get this out more to people, I think it might help people. I think a guidebook might be, you know um, required as well, to go with this, a workbook, because this book has some of the science, and it's a bit more, there's more background, and probably most people might find that a bit, they could do without, and so a guidebook would be helpful. Beyond that, I sort of, it's like a big cause in me, in my head, and I just want to promote this and encourage people, and probably come up with some other books as well, other circumstances, whether it be, reenactments with parents and kids, and what they do to kids early on, and get them to change so that the programming is, they grow up, with a different programming, as opposed to the, an example, childhood polyvictimization predicts adult polyvictimization. What it means is, if you were beat, used, and abused as a kid, you'll grow up and be used and abused as an adult. That's not the that's not the message we want to give. We want to shape things differently so that people have a different life as adults.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Tony, and looking forward for more success.
Great, thanks.
Yes, and what will be your piece of advice for those people that don't want to be like you?
Piece of advice.
Yes, please.
I didn't get the last part. Excuse me.
What will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
Oh, like me.
Yes.
uh, um, Piece of advice. Uh, Read everything. Learn. Because it makes you face things, it makes you look at things, and it teaches you, and you'll learn things, and you'll find some strategies, and become a better person in terms of how to make reads in everyday life.
Make You something else if you follow that advice of Mr. Tony. And thank you for that advice, Mr. Tony. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Uh, it's I hate to say it, it's a bit cliche, but Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, which is on most people's best lists, in terms of influence. Basically, it's a book about finding purpose in the suffering that we may be experiencing, because suffering without purpose is just torture. So this is a book that was written by a psychiatrist, and it was by someone who spent 3 years in the POW camps during World War II. And so this was a remarkable story, and he this idea of purpose and meaning in life, is what the book really focuses on. So that's one. I think the other one might be Daniel Kahneman, which is Thinking Fast and Slow, which is this idea of old habits, new habits, and how that happens and how that shapes you. And so it's a book that basically brings awareness as to the thinking process. So those are the two books, old and new, I think that would be beneficial to anyone.
Thank you for that recommended books, Mr. Tony. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Low 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, and my movie 101 review and music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Mr. Tony, ultimately, when someone breaks core reenactment pattern, what kind of freedom do they gain? Is it freedom of choice, freedom of the past, or freedom to become a new version of themselves?
You said it. You said it very well. It's a chance to be the self you want to be. And the past doesn't go away. It informs you in terms of your behavior today. So understanding that will help. If you can break the reenactment, you'll have the opportunity to behave more in the present and be more that person. So it's absolutely important that, like I said, do different if you want to be different. So that's what it would do. It would give you more freedom, more choice, and even if it's difficult, having the choice is absolutely important.
Definitely, Mr. Tony Iezzi. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your upcoming book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So where do people can buy your upcoming book, Mister?
It'll be on Amazon. In the next couple of days, I'll have a website going up, and I'll be at TonyYetzzi.com.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Tony Iezzi because it's support him for sure more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Tony, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your time.
Thank you for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.